Only one resolution.
Okay, 2016 capital budget.
Right.
Do I have a motion on the table?
Not by the tracks, and the tracks with their fire.
On page 36.
Okay,
Councillor Panasic.
I'll make the motion that council adopt the 2016 capital budget as presented with the expenditures totaling $3,239,100 and revenues of, I don't like that number, 143,100 taken from reserves and $3,096,000 to come from grants provided by the Province of Alberta and Big Lakes County. So,
Go ahead.
that's a start. Gotta have lots of questions now.
No, it is that.
Yeah.
Do they know what you just said?
It's all written down.
Basically, we have not actually, as a group, sat down and looked at a capital budget. I'll be honest, we've only the last couple of weeks gone through this, but we took the programs and plans that were laid out by council, the 10-year capital plan that was presented to council, that was prepared by MPE Engineering. The equipment replacement plan that's always been there, is just sort of back into the play. A request from Fire Chief Melnick, and a prepared budget based on the requirements, current funding availability. The documents that are here is a budget summary with projects, it's a suggested funding sources. There's a copy of Fire Chief Melnick's request. There's also a copy of the 10-year capital plan summary, and then also documentation provided by Manager of Operations Vern Walker regarding the river pump replacement. I can maybe, if you want, get Vern up here, he can speak to the projects related to public works, and then Chief Melnick can speak to his ATV, and then I can cut in and help him with the revenue end of it.
Sounds good.
You're the big spender.
I didn't want
You're the big spender.
I'm a bottom feeder, like Chris just said.
Expensive one.
I get the leftovers.
Golden carp.
Okay, basically project number 201508 is a project that we did get completed last year. The Elks Campground, so it's been carried over to this year's capital budget. The replacement of V19, which is a 1979 tandem dump truck. That's part of the equipment replacement plan, which council has had before them in the past, along with the sewer crawler camera and the replacement of V33 is all part of the equipment replacement plan. The wastewater pumping station, it's part of the 10-year capital plan. We are doing assessments on that as we speak to see the intensity of replacing that lift station, to see whether it has to be completely replaced or whether we can do a retrofit.
And which one's number 2?
The one on the highway, which services St. Andrews, the hospital, and most of the east end of downtown.
How old is that one?
That's a 1974.
Okay.
That one there is pretty much the last one that we would have to look at for a period of time. The others, it went through a upgrade in 1988 where the metal canister was recoded. What we need to do as part of our assessment is find out whether we can just slide an epoxy liner on the inside of that existing canister or whether we have to replace that canister. But we have budgeted in the capital budget the actual amount to replace it completely. And with that being said, it may not have to be that much. The mill and gutter overlay would for 47th Street would be another RFP, like we did on 51st Street. rather than using the engineers. It's basically a simple project that I think 51st, other than the west approach into IGA, turned out very, very well. And it was substantially less than what it would have cost for the engineers to be involved. We did that ourselves. The U Street at St. Andrews is the 51st and 52nd, mill gutter overlay and some sidewalk replacement on the north end. That would also be another RFP that we would put out ourselves. There's very little underground that needs to be looked at that point. The big one, the 50th Street from Highway 2 by Smitty's to 59th Street, our avenue. That is the big project that we have. I'm not sure, Brian, has that gone to the MD for approval through the intermunicipal? But we have, that's one of the ones that we would be utilizing the $1 million. Our justification for that is that that street services the schools, it services JC Park, and it also services the pool. So I don't think we would have a whole bunch of concern in regards to that.
It's in rough shape.
It's probably our worst street now. The Evergreen Reservoir roof, we discovered that late last fall, that it was leaking down into the cinder blocks and exploding the blocks when it got cold and froze. So that's one that we really need to take care of this year to get that roof redone. That's in 1980 when that was put in, so we're looking 36 years.
Is this the
Tennis courts.
building?
Well, not that portion of it, because that portion actually sits on town-owned property. It's the north part of the reservoir that we're worried about.
I just didn't want to fix it up for him.
And the replacement of the river pump, if you go to the very last 2 pages of your agenda, we had a $23,000 repair bill coming on the backup pump that was in the water last year. I felt that it's a 30-year-old pump, so I was thinking that it's probably time that we replaced it. I got prices on 2 different pumps, one with a rubber diffuser, which is, and one with a poly diffuser. If you notice a price difference, it's because the poly diffuser will last us, when I talked to them, it will probably last us an extra 5 years without having to replace it. So in the end, if you buy the more expensive one, it will eventually save you money. I wasn't happy with that price, so I decided to pull out my little sharp pencil and start to do some negotiating, and they come back with a 9% reduction on that price, which Herman didn't have time to include into this. I would still like to go with the 58, and if we get that cost savings, then it will be saved in the capital dollars. Also, with the pump that's out there, I asked them if they would send this to recycling for us because of the copper windings and all that was contained within it. They said they would do that for us for the price of the copper that's in there. So I asked them to reduce that price of this pump by that much too. So if they do that for us, we will get a reduction in that price again of whatever the copper is worth, plus them having to ship it back here for us to dismantle and send out for recycling. So the shipping both ways would be saving as well. So my recommendation on that one is to replace that pump. The sooner council decides that, the better, because I don't know how much water is going to be coming down that river this year. And if something happens to the one that goes in, we could watch a whole lot of water go by us and not be able to refill the reservoir. And I will entertain any questions on my portion of the capital budget.
Mayor Cox?
Don't we have to match the county's $1 million with $1 million of ours?
And I think Herman is, well, I'll let you talk.
Yes, if you see in the columns there for the revenues for any of the projects, where the Big Lakes County amount is in there, we got at least the equal amount there through grants that we're using our grants for our portion, so 50%. So that's going all the way with all those projects except for the lift station or the pumping station. We're only asking 57,000. That's the amount that's left over when after we ask 50% of everything else. So basically, if we have a saving, let's say on the river pump or any of those projects, that amount on their side would go up. But the total amount we're requesting from them is $1 million.
Okay, so that's really Town of High Prairie grants. That's where we're getting.
That's our, yes, and I'll break down into those grants when we get into the revenue side of it.
Also on the Evergreen Reservoir roof, there's possibilities of putting solar panels on that roof maybe, and maybe we get the whole roof for that?
We could put solar panels on to run certain things in there, but the solar panels are not gonna run your pumpings, what's in there for pumps and everything. They won't generate enough power.
You're sure? Because, you know, according to the NDP, that's just the way it's going.
I don't know if a solar panel generates three-phase power.
It does. It does. Right. Like I show you one that does Village Delia. It's an old one.
We could put solar panels on and put lights for the tennis courts.
And what would we charge them for a rate? Always good to generate revenues.
It's a good plan. I'm actually quite pleased to see the 50th Street, the 3 phases. I like the idea that the town is doing 2 of the projects themselves. I think that your expertise is well seen in the one by KFC, and we do have some of the equipment that's available to help in doing those kinds of things. Also, your equipment replacement, you did a good job of that when you first brought out the different vehicles that we have and which ones were going to be replaced. The Elks campground upgrades, I think that campground could get a lot of use and will get a lot of use, so a sewer upgrade is certainly well in hand. The side-by-side, I'm interested to see our fire chief riding up and down, spraying water.
I was gonna get Ken up here, put him on the hot seat once you're finished with Vern running him through the place.
So that was my comments on the.
Thank you very much.
Councillor Courtney.
Was there any funding or anything for fixing that west approach for IGA? Like, is that IGA's or is that the town's?
No, that's ours, and it's still under warranty.
Oh.
They'll be back in the spring to fix up that.
So that's included in the original.
Yes.
Original number.
We still have a hole back on them.
Oh, there is. Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. Thanks.
Councillor Panasic.
I'm just curious on some of the 50th Street, it talks about a pipe burst. What does that mean? I'm not sure if I understand.
We did it on 49th Street. What they do is fuse a bunch of pipe together. They'll pull a reamer down the existing pipe that's there, and there's no ground disturbance. And in High Prairie, if you disturb the ground, eventually you're going to have trench settlement. And that's why we're moving to this technology where there's not a whole bunch of services that have to be tied onto the line. And on that street, it's basically a straight shot.
Okay.
Smitty's is on there. They'll dig up the intersections where the crosses have to go in, and then it's a clear shot all the way to 59th without having to do, other than the intersections, trenching.
So this is a water line going in?
Yes.
Okay, that's what I was.
Well, replacement. Yeah,
water.
they will pull a 8-inch or probably a 10-inch reamer down the old 6-inch line, and then pull in the new 8-inch behind it. It's new technology, which is to save us cost.
Did they not have something like that on display in the trade fair at the gas co-op? And they were showing the reamer?
Yes, they did.
Yeah. Interesting.
Just the other question I had is, we've got $1 million from Big Lakes County. Has there been an update? I know there was some concern.
I did speak with the treasurer, he was away in holidays last week, but confirmed. Basically, this year, they're going ahead with the capital, this is what their plan is to present to council, is they go ahead with the capital allocations for the same rate as in previous years, the $1 million for the town of High Prairie. Where the hit will come is next year, so we need to spend our $1 million this year to take advantage of it, get the most out of it, but there is an opportunity where they will drop the money next year based on their lost revenues on their linear assessment. So,
Okay.
but for this year, it seems to be a go.
Yeah. No, and it's good. It sounds like, I too think it's a good plan, and I like it, and I like Vern's negotiating skills there to get us some reductions. I'm just looking at the long-range plan, just to get this in my head a little bit, that's on page 42 in terms of, I mean, we're all right for up until 2020 with, you know, $2 to $3 million in capital projects budgeted. And then we make a big jump to 7 for a couple of years, and then 34. I'm curious about the jumps.
Basically, some of that may not have to happen, but it has to be included, and council needs to be aware of it. Part of it is lagoon structure, expansion, or possible treatment facility at the lagoon for sewage. That 32 million, the big one, is a water line from Lesser Slave Lake, and there is far cheaper alternatives out there. And if the regional water system goes forward, then that will come out of the budget. There will be a contribution to probably the regional water system, which council will negotiate with the MD. But my feeling is that 32 million won't have to happen, but council needs to be aware that there is that possibility.
Why, if I can ask, why, if that's just a water intake, why is it scheduled sort of in that year? What's the importance of that particular year?
It's the last year of what the original plan was, and we've just been, if you notice that it only goes to 2023, that's the original plan that council adopted. So it could be bumped further back as we go forward, remembering that the 10-year capital plan is a working document that we bring forward to council every year.
And I thought a lot of that was a new treatment plant or an improved treatment plant. Is this just a different intake source?
This is just the water line that was going to cost to come from Lesser Slave Lake to High Prairie.
Okay, we can talk about that later. I was just curious. So it's lagoon and water intake from Lesser Slave Lake. That's
if you look at the roads part of it and the equipment part of it, it's pretty consistent. The building, which Herman, we haven't included any buildings in capital this year because of the fact that we want to wrap our heads around that Amerisco report before we start. So when we bring it forward next year as part of the operating budget, which Herman says that's most of where it's going to go, we will assess it. The 2016 stuff will be now 2017 and just continue. We're just going to delay it 1 year once we can wrap our heads around what was contained in that.
Yeah. Well, you have 190,000 for buildings this year. You know, that's.
No, this is just the summary of what we had.
Oh, okay.
It's not included in the capital. We will be doing some of that work that was put out in the 2016 portion of that Amerisco report through operating, where we can find the money. But
that roof wouldn't be part of the buildings?
The roof is part of the 10-year capital plan. The reservoir and sewer, like water and sewer structures are part of our 10-year capital plan, not the town-owned buildings.
Okay.
And with regards to the roof also, it's a capital item is that it'll extend the life of the building. Without it, the building just runs natural end of life cycle. This way it'll put life onto the building, additional life.
And the building plan that we did, it appears that in the new MGA, municipalities will be ordered to do building plans. So I think we're ahead of the game in that we've got the beginning of one or one that we can work with.
So in the summary, it's probably, in the structure improvements, is probably more along the lines of about 10 million rather than 45. Because I'm confident that the EMD water system will eventually go ahead, which takes the stress off of our reservoir here if council chooses to still operate our own system, or whether they join as part of the regional system. And with the sewer lagoons, that all will be determined by scientists and engineers and environmentalists that sit in offices and don't have to operate these things. That's my rant now.
What the dog said.
Yeah.
Can we put solar panels on?
They do have mixers out there. They're called solar bees that will sit on there and they'll churn up. But once you start adding stuff like that, your requirements or your level of treatment goes up as well. So, you know, you go to an aerated lagoon system, and then your requirements for operators goes up as well. And right now we're meeting the qualities that we have to meet with the system we have. So my recommendation is until they change the rules. Yeah.
Can you tell that's what I went to for 2 solar weeks, solar panel, solar.
December, January, February, most of them.
Said it was great.
So Brian,
And oh, sorry.
just wondered, was Brian's comment that the total funding on page 37 and the total funding on your summary for your 216 were different amounts? Is that what he was talking to, or you were saying some of it was already in the operating budget?
No, just with the buildings that we're going to, like Herman has pointed out to us as far as the auditor is concerned, as part of that Amerisco report, some of the stuff there is just maintenance, it's not capital expenditures. I just want to point out that with the 50th Street, we're only setting aside so much money to do 50th Street, what we can do on 50th Street this year, and that's why we're tendering out in 3 different ABC sections, and we'll pick if a contract comes in high, we will come back to council and we'll discuss it at that point. Do we want to spend the extra money if it comes in high and do the whole thing? Or do we just want to do it in sections and carry a portion of it over to the 2017?
Councillor Courtney.
So the numbers that you have here, just out of curiosity, for each of the ABC projects and even the other ones, is that those costs are just on history and what it's taken for cost now? Is that where the numbers have come from as far as the number?
Basically, what they have done for us is taken some of the contracts that have closed already this year and taken some of the unit prices from those contracts and passed on to us for this year.
That required drop.
Yeah, and as you can see, that some places it's much cheaper.
Yeah.
Because it's just going to be a simple mill and overlay, no underground replacement. Other places it's going to be the pipe bursting. And I know with replacing the V19 tandem, we did get it certified for this year, so I'm sure that Sunstone Energy would be interested in purchasing that truck.
I've got one for sale.
But with it being certified this year, it also will add a little bit of value to it because it has been deemed certified.
I did drive that truck when I worked for the town. Just want you to know.
And Steve took the radio out.
Yeah, he did, yeah. Said you shouldn't be driving that, young fella, you don't know how to shift it.
Yeah.
Anybody else have questions for Vern on his portion of the capital before we fire chief?
Oh, just one more thing, and we will be looking for, with replacing that tandem, it will be a tandem that we can find that is not new, but gently used, and we'll find something. We did that in about 2004 was it, Brian? And we bought a 96 green tandem. And- Yeah, and it's been a really, really good truck for us.
I've got one for sale in Birch Hills.
Just swap one with Sunstone.
That's a Freightliner though.
Lots of auctions coming up this year. Ken, did you want to speak to the side by each?
Okay. So, fire department is entertaining the idea of buying a side-by-side and using it for rescue and for fighting grass fires. We're going to get a skid unit that goes in the back, which has a water tank and a pump and a foam reductor and stuff built into it. I know it only carries 75 gallons of water, but you mix that with foam and it acts like 10 to 1, so it'd be just like 750 gallons of water. We've had many fires over the last few years where we could have used something like this. Like, they're really handy in the springtime when it's too wet to drive out in the field with our trucks. You have to do everything on foot. This way, if we had side by side, we could go out there and put these fires out in the swamp. Last year, we were up at Stouts Dam, in the swamp. We made miles and miles on foot, where if we had a side by side, we could have just hauled our stuff back and forth. Just a few weeks ago, we had Lyndon Drefts went over the riverbank by Nilda. Ended up upside down on the ice with his truck. We had to rappel down the riverbank with all our tools and everything. It was about a 20-foot, 25-foot drop to go down. Had to carry all our hydraulic equipment and stuff down there. And then we got the doors cut off. We got him out. How we gonna get him up? Like, so we got a hold of Devin Perisky, and Devin came down and brought a skidoo and a toboggan and hauled him up. If we had a side by side, we could have just drove down there and got him. Last summer, we had an RCMP down by Blue Lake, flipped his quad, broke his leg. Stars flew in. We had to go in with quads and haul him out with a quad. He was in pain because broken leg on a quad, on the back of a quad is pretty rough. If we had a side by side, we could have strapped him into a stretcher and he would have been a little bit more comfortable. So, I mean, those are just some of the ideas that we want, and or some of the reasons we want to buy one. And we do have our equipment reserve that we collect money from motor vehicle accidents. I believe there's vicinity of 200,000 in there.
Yeah, and then some.
And then some, okay. So, if possible, I would like to take some money out of that equipment reserve and purchase this side-by-side and the skid unit, which will come out to $28,100, yeah, so.
Councillor Gilroy?
Personally, it sounds like it's coming in less than what you made last year, because I think it was 37 that was more over budgeted last in the proposal you gave us. But I kind of like the idea, because would this also be, and I hate sounding this way, but that would also be a revenue generator, wouldn't it?
Yes, it would be, yeah.
Okay. I'm sorry. It's an investment.
Nothing wrong with that.
It's an investment.
Just a couple of questions. How would you guys haul this around? Would you need to buy a trailer?
We purchased a trailer last fall. We bought an 18-foot car hauler trailer, which we use to haul vehicles back and forth to the airport to do practice extrication on.
Oh, okay.
So
So you've already got the trailer?
We've got the trailer, yeah, so we would use it to haul the side by side.
And storage for it? The hall's got room to put that?
We'll make room, yeah. We'll put it on the roof if we have to.
No fire hall expansion.
No fire hall expansion, not yet.
No one uses the office anyway.
And you'd have a good policy on when you could use it and couldn't use it.
Yeah, I don't think we would, although I'd like to, but I don't think we'll go moose hunting with it.
Yeah.
I was gonna say 911 moose.
It doesn't come with a rifle boot, eh?
Yeah.
Nine racks for it.
Yeah, right. So, I don't know, what's the council wishes there?
Have you approached the county yet? Because they have to be in agreement with this.
I sent the same letter to the county and, well, they won't meet till next week, so.
Just like the new councils wouldn't be aware of that, you have to get permission from them.
Oh, right, yeah.
It's a shared, take that money out of that reserve.
Yeah, this reserve is shared between the county and the town, so we have to get permission from both.
You plan
The
on
money's not shared with them though.
Well, yeah.
You plan on going to their council meeting too, Ken, or?
If they request me, yeah, so,
It may be better if you do go. Is it up to town? Ask. the
yeah,
town.
okay. So,
I got a meeting with them tomorrow, so I can ask them to put you on the agenda.
okay. Well, I sent a letter down, last week, same day I got this one into the town, so,
Yesterday.
don't know there was another one,
Where's Chris at?
yeah, March 22nd, so. But I did, send the same letter to the MD council, or the county council. Hopefully it'll come up next Wednesday.
Motion?
It's all part of the.
That's all part of it. No more questions regarding that, but I can answer.
Anybody have any questions
on revenues.
about it? I think it'd be a great idea to improve the level of safety we could offer, so,
As long as it's ready.
as long as it's red.
Not John Deere green. Polaris red. Okay.
Okay, yeah, thank you.
So having spoken to the expense side of it, I can now take some questions regarding the revenues. Basically, we've got the 143,100 that we're looking at taking out of our reserves. So the fire equipment reserve is straightforward enough for Ken's item. The surplus equipment, pool capital, $95,000, so those two items from Vern. And the $25,000, I'm going too fast here, $20,000 was for the Elks Campground. Pardon me. The amounts coming out from grants. We have money still in our deferred MSI capital grant. That's money that we received for MSI capital over the past few years, which has not been spent out. So there is $1.3 million amount that's reflected there in that reserve. So we're talking about cleaning that money out. We don't want to leave any deferred money in there for somebody to maybe decide that they should claw back. It's probably best to expend that. We have some deferred BMTG grant revenue. That's basic municipal transportation grant, I believe it was. That's now gone, and before it was part of our MSI grants. So we've still got 13,000 there. So we're saying clean that out. And then also the deferred federal gas tax funding revenue we have is to clean that out of there in the grants. The $1 million for the grant for the county. And so we've signed most of the projects 50-50 on those, with the project for the pump station number 2 just basically getting the balance of $57,000. Should some of these projects come in less than, as Vern alluded to with the replacing of the river pump, if that comes in at, let's say 50,000 and 58 instead of 58,000, we'd only take 25,000 from the county, but we'd increase their 57,000 to 61,000. So the money for that project would be upward to 50% of the total project. And then the last two are current funding, the federal gas tax funding. I think it's still solid for this year, I'm hoping. So we're talking about using all of that. And our MSI money last year, we actually received $889,545. We're talking about using it for this year, $487,721. So we're not necessarily, if we get funded for our MSI not utilizing the full amount. We'd have to submit these to those funding agencies. Now, if on the 14th of April, I wouldn't put anything into the province yet. If on the 14th of April, all of a sudden they'd announce that there's some extra capital money available, and that we'd use our, say, MSI or whatever, then it might be an idea then to apply for some funds if these would be considered shovel-ready projects. There's no sense getting a commitment for them to use the other funds if we could maybe have an idea of some money coming on the 14th. So that's something I'd recommend to council.
I'd just like to add something, that if the funding does come out the way we've heard and they're wanting shovel-ready projects, we'll come back to council with more projects to add to this year's capital budget if they announce more funding. I just wanted to make you guys aware that we are preparing for that too.
I just want to go over, somebody had asked, I have this number here. No, I didn't. No, I'll leave it at that. Any other questions regarding the funding for the projects? Or the capital budget?
Councillor Panasic.
I get lots of questions. So in 2015, we got from, on MSI, we've got 800,000, you were saying?
We received in 2015, 889,545
So
for MSI.
900 basically.
Yeah, and so we're saying this year, what we're including, besides the MSI money that we've accumulated from previous years, $487,721 for this year's MSI grant.
And is there any inclination of what they're likely coming out with that you've heard with MSI?
They're being very tight-lipped about it, and I'm thinking it's safe, at least at that level.
At half of
Sort of
last
the
year's,
hints I'm getting, nobody wants to commit to anything. There was a commitment made previously to MSI, so I think it's safe this year. I can't guarantee for the future. They may start looking at the price of oil next year and saying what they need to do. They know that we're looking for our capital project money so that we can take advantage of some funds that may be available through the feds and through them, so I'm hoping they're not touching it. I think we're probably safe with this, so.
And if I understand right, we could put aside 500 and defer it if they gave us the 900?
If
like
they gave it,
did.
yes. You have the ability to, we've done that in the past, that's how we got this 1.3 million, or almost 1.4 million built up. It does not have to be spent in the year that is provided,
Okay.
because you can then, you know, package it up for future years.
Yeah.
Yeah. Especially for smaller municipalities. Cities have no problem spending the money.
Well, and we could spend it no problem either. That's not an issue, but I was just trying to figure out how you could carry it over.
We didn't put that, but that's the only one we probably look at taking forward. Probably clean up the other ones.
Yeah.
Just have one number to take forward and deferred rather than three numbers and try and keep track of it all and start doing pennies and nickels and dimes.
Okay, thank you.
Any other questions?
Councillor Gilroy.
So if I'm getting this right, by the time you finish with the MSI that we already have on hand, we would still have 402,000 roughly,
In that range.
plus whatever happens this year.
If they give us the same funding as, no, pardon me, we have not received any money for 2016 yet.
Well, I'm looking at 214, 215, so it's 402,000 plus whatever we receive for 2016. Is that right?
No, we're spending everything except for 402,000 out of the
Right.
216.
So we'd clean it up, we just have the 402 plus
Remaining
whatever,
in MSI,
plus whatever they gave us after that.
if they give us any more than that. I don't believe it's that. It'd be nice. Any other questions? Pass it back to you.
That's all. Thank you. Any other comments, questions? Thanks, we have the motion read.
That council adopt the 2016 capital budget as presented, with expenditures totaling $239,100 and revenues of $143,100 taken from reserves, and $3,096,000 to come from grants provided by the province of Alberta and Big Lakes County.
Thank you. All those in favor? Carried.
good luck in your future endeavors.
As I said, I do have a tandem truck for sale. It's a 2003. It's a nice, pretty white, clean white. You gotta never see the shop so clean as they have up there, I'll tell you.
Meeting adjourned.